I opened the baby monitor app to catch my wife singing off-key to our daughter. Instead, I froze in the doorway of my own life, watching a stranger walk into my home like he owned the key. My name is Ethan Cole, 39 years old, senior financial analyst at a mid-tier firm in Austin, Texas, the kind of job that pays enough to be comfortable without ever making you wealthy. 8 years married to Sarah, a part-time yoga instructor who smelled like eucalyptus and always touched my shoulder when she passed behind my chair. We lived in a renovated Craftsman in East Austin with original hardwood floors and a mortgage I was 6 months away from paying off entirely. She called our rescue dog Professor because he sat by the bookshelf like he was studying. I loved her in that quiet way that doesn't announce itself, the kind that just assumes permanence. That Tuesday morning, she met me in the kitchen with my travel mug already filled. The Henderson acquisition required me in the office until at least 9, probably later. She kissed my jawline, the way she always did when she wasn't fully awake yet, and asked if I'd be home for dinner. I said probably not. She smiled and said she'd save me some anyway. The back door clicked shut behind me. What I didn't tell her, what I hadn't mentioned because it felt like admitting I didn't trust her, was that I'd installed a nanny cam in the nursery 3 days prior. Not for a baby, we didn't have children. For the antique jewelry box my grandmother left me, the one that had gone missing from our bedroom twice in the past month, only to reappear with nothing apparently taken. Gaslighting, my sister had called it when I mentioned it over the phone. Or you're misplacing things, Sarah had suggested, her voice soft with concern. The camera was my compromise with my own sanity. So at 10:47 a.m., I opened the app from my cubicle on the 14th floor. 30 seconds, I told myself. Just long enough to confirm the jewelry box sat undisturbed on the nursery dresser. The feed loaded with that half-second delay that always made the image feel like memory rather than present tense. Sarah was in the hallway, but she wasn't in her robe, wasn't carrying laundry, wasn't doing anything that belonged to a Tuesday morning. She was standing at our front door, her body angled in that particular way people stand when they're trying to block the view through the sidelight. Then she stepped back, and a man entered my home. He was compact, dark-haired, wearing a delivery uniform I'd never seen before. No logo, just generic navy blue. He carried a large toolbox that clinked when he set it down, the sound of metal on wood transmitting clearly through the camera's microphone. Sarah closed the door behind him. She didn't hug him, didn't kiss him. Something worse. She locked the deadbolt, then checked the front window, pulling the curtain aside with one finger to scan the street. The way you check for witnesses. The way you confirm a coast is clear. Then she pointed toward our bedroom and he walked there without a word between them, without any hesitation, like they'd rehearsed this moment until it required no dialogue. I sat in my ergonomic chair with the quarterly reports spread across my desk and felt my body go somewhere else entirely. My hands found my phone without my permission. My thumb dialed 911 without my conscious direction. The operator answered with practiced calm, and I heard myself speaking from somewhere distant, my voice low because the open-plan office meant 17 colleagues sat within earshot, because I was trying not to become a story they told at happy hour. I'm watching my house right now. There's a man inside. My wife let him in. He's in our bedroom. The operator asked if my wife was in danger. I watched the screen. Sarah had followed him into the bedroom. She wasn't cowering, wasn't reaching for a weapon or her phone. She was sliding open my closet door, the one with the built-in safe I'd installed when we bought the house, and she was spinning the combination dial with the casual efficiency of someone who'd done this before. Many times before. No, I said. She's helping him. The silence on the operator's end lasted 3 seconds. Then, "Sir, can you confirm your address?" I gave it. I stayed on the line. I watched them work through my bedroom with professional patience. The man didn't rush. He handled my grandmother's jewelry box with latex-gloved hands, placing it in his toolbox with the care of a museum curator. He moved to my dresser, my nightstand, the file cabinet where I kept our important documents. When he reached the safe, Sarah stepped aside. He didn't force it, didn't drill it. He simply opened it the way you open something you've been given the combination to, and removed the manila envelope containing my grandfather's war medals, the deed to my lake property, the key to my safety deposit box. everything important, everything I thought was hidden. My colleague Janet appeared beside my desk with the quarterly projections. Ethan, the Henderson team is waiting in conference room B. I looked up at her with an expression that made her step backward, that made her hand rise to her throat. Cancel it, I said. I watched Sarah walk the man back through my hallway 23 minutes after he'd arrived. His toolbox was heavier now. She checked the front window again before unlocking the deadbolt, the same cautious movement, the same verification of privacy. Then she shook his hand. Not a lover's gesture. Something more transactional. The way you acknowledge completed business. The way you seal an arrangement. The safe. That was what my mind kept returning to. He hadn't forced it. Hadn't struggled. He'd opened it like a man retrieving his own property, which meant Sarah had given him the combination or the spare key that lived in my desk drawer at home. I thought about my keys in my pocket. The small silver key I'd kept separate from my ring. I couldn't remember the last time I'd verified it was there. Last month? 2 months ago? I opened the safe perhaps twice a year. Birth certificates, property deeds, my grandfather's medals. Nothing I accessed regularly. Everything I couldn't replace. My phone buzzed against the desk. Sarah's face on the screen, our wedding photo, her laughing at something I'd said while the photographer wasn't ready. Professor knocked over the laundry basket again. Chaos reigns. I stared at that message for 11 seconds by the clock on my monitor. She was texting me dog updates, while the evidence of whatever she'd just facilitated was walking down my front steps in a toolbox. She was sending me casual texts with laughing emojis. I typed back, haha, classic professor. Then I opened my banking app. Joint checking, normal. Joint savings, normal. The investment account we managed together, normal. Then I checked the account I didn't talk about. The one with my actual savings, the inheritance from my mother that I'd been building since her diagnosis 3 years ago. The fund that represented 18 months of expenses and the security I'd promised myself. Last transaction. Yesterday at 2:13 p.m., ACH transfer, $31,700. Outgoing. I didn't recognize the receiving institution. I scrolled upward with thumbs that had stopped feeling like part of my body. For previous transfers over the past 8 weeks. $5,200. $8,900. $12,400. $7,800. Each one small enough to ignore if you weren't looking, large enough to hollow you out if you were. She hadn't started yesterday. She'd been excavating me for 2 months, maybe longer, taking careful bites so I wouldn't feel the teeth. I left the office without shutting down my computer. Took the elevator to the parking garage. Sat in my sedan with the engine off and the footage playing on loop, watching her let him in, watching her open my closet. Watching her hand over my life to a stranger in a generic uniform. 8 years of marriage reduced to 23 minutes of surveillance footage. 8 years of morning coffee and shared showers and whispered plans for a future that apparently only one of us had been building. I called my bank from the car. Fraud department. 6 minutes on hold listening to piano arrangements of songs that had been popular when I was in high school. The representative's name was David. I explained the unauthorized transfers with a voice that sounded like someone practicing for a role. David accessed my account history. He went quiet. The silence stretched. Mr. Cole, these transfers were authorized using your complete security credentials. Correct password. Correct PIN. Correct answers to your security questions. They were initiated from a device registered to your home network. Sarah's tablet. The one I bought her last Christmas because she said she wanted to read books without the eye strain. She hadn't stolen my password. She'd watched me type it. I need everything frozen, I said. Every account. Joint and individual. Right now. I can do that, sir. But I should mention that I hung up. I sat in the underground garage with the concrete pillars around me like a crypt. And then something shifted in my chest. Moved past the vertigo of betrayal. Past the nausea of realizing every intimate moment might have been inventory, and settled somewhere harder, colder. She'd asked about dinner this morning, not because she wanted to see me, but because she needed to know my timeline. She'd calculated she had 11 hours. I checked my watch. 11:58 a.m. She thought she had until 9 tonight. which meant I had the rest of the day to learn who had been sleeping beside me for 8 years. I drove to my brother's apartment. Not home. Not the police station. Not yet. Michael had been a homicide detective for 15 years before burnout took him to private security consulting. He was the person who found the things people buried deep, the connections that didn't want to be found. I'd never imagined I'd show up at his door in the middle of a Tuesday with surveillance footage of my own wife. He opened the door in gym clothes, took one look at my face, and stepped aside without asking what happened. I showed him the footage on my phone. He watched it with the professional stillness of someone who had seen too much to be surprised by any of it. He watched it twice, 3 times. On the 4th viewing, he paused on the man's face as he turned toward the nursery window, checking the angle of the light. "I know this type," Michael said quietly. "Not him specifically, but I've seen this before." He pointed at the screen. "The way he moves, checking sight lines before entering rooms, handling items without leaving prints. The systematic progression through the space. That's not a burglar, Ethan. Burglars are chaotic, desperate. They take what's visible." He looked at me. This man was executing a targeted extraction. He came for specific items. Not everything valuable, just particular things. Michael paused. "What exactly was in that safe?" I listed everything. The medals, the property deeds, the safety deposit key. Michael's expression changed when I mentioned the medals. "Your wife," he said carefully. "Where did she grow up?" "Houston," I said. "Why?" Michael was already at his computer, pulling up databases I didn't have access to. He typed Sarah's full name, date of birth, Houston, Texas. The search returned nothing. Not limited results. Not sealed records. Nothing. 0 results. Michael tried variations. Sarah Elizabeth Cole. Sarah Brennan, her maiden name. Texas DMV records. He cross-referenced her social security number from our joint tax returns, the number she'd given me when we married, the one I used every April without question. The number existed. It belonged to a woman named Sarah Elizabeth Brennan, born 1985, died 2004. 19 years old. Car accident. "She's using a dead person's identity," Michael said. "Not dramatically, just as fact. The way you'd comment on weather. It's called ghosting. Taking the identity of someone who died young, before digital records were comprehensive. Clean social. Buildable credit. No surviving family to contradict you." He paused. "It's sophisticated. Requires preparation. Resources. Connections." 8 years, I said. The words felt foreign in my mouth. "She's maintained this for 8 years. Probably longer." Michael nodded. "This kind of infrastructure takes years to establish. She wasn't new to this when she met you." He pulled up another screen. "Ethan, I need to ask you something. Your mother passed 10 months ago. Her estate finalized 6 weeks ago. The lake property. The safety deposit box." I stopped breathing. The documents were in my home office, in the filing cabinet. Michael and I looked at each other. I was already reaching for my keys. He put his hand on my arm with the strength of someone who had physically restrained people before. "Don't," he said. "If she's who I think she is, walking back into that house alone is the last thing you should do right now." Michael called Detective Ruiz directly. They had history, cases where private investigation and police work had overlapped, mutual respect built on years of shared discoveries. Ruiz answered on the first ring. Michael handed me the phone. I talked for 5 minutes without interruption. When I finished, Ruiz was silent for 4 seconds. "Ethan Cole," he said finally, "your wife's photograph. Can you send me the clearest image you have?" I pulled the best frame from the footage. Sent it. 20 seconds passed. "I'm looking at her right now," Ruiz said slowly. "In our database." Another pause. The kind that precedes information that restructures everything. "We know her as Rebecca Voss. Before that, Amanda Kerr. Before that, 3 other names I'm still pulling." His voice dropped slightly. "Ethan, she's wanted in 3 states. California, Florida, Illinois. Estate fraud. Identity theft. Conspiracy. She's been active for 14 years. 14 years. I'd been married to her for 8 of them. The man in your footage, Ruiz continued, matches the description of her known associate. A man named Julian Torres. We've been trying to connect him to her for 4 years. I heard him stand up. Movement in the background. I'm dispatching units to your address right now. Ethan, does she own a vehicle registered separately from yours? I thought hard. She drove my car mostly, but yes. A Subaru registered in her name. I gave him the plate number. Ruiz typed something, then stopped. Ethan. His voice shifted into something careful and precise. Her vehicle just passed through a toll plaza. 12 minutes ago. Where? Austin Bergstrom International Airport. Terminal entrance. They have her at security checkpoint D. Boarding pass to Buenos Aires. 1 carry-on. My passport in her bag. She needed it as backup documentation, Michael explained later. Standard for someone planning a clean disappearance. My grandfather's medals were in there too, wrapped in a sweater like they were nothing special. Julian Torres was arrested 40 minutes later at a shipping center in Westlake, attempting to overnight my mother's estate documents to a Phoenix address. I wasn't at the airport. Ruiz had been firm about that. I sat in Michael's kitchen drinking water that tasted like nothing and watched the afternoon light shift across the table and waited for my phone to ring. It rang at 5:12 p.m. We have her, Ruiz said. 3 words. I set the phone down on the table and sat completely still for a long time. Her real name was Rebecca Voss. Born in Phoenix, 46 years old, 14 years of constructed identities, carefully selected targets, meticulously planned exits, 5 states, 8 confirmed victims before me. Men who'd lost inheritances, retirements, years of their lives. Men who, in 3 cases, never fully understood what had actually happened to them. I testified at her trial 6 months later, sat 15 feet from the woman I'd shared a bed with for 8 years and watched her watch me with an expression I finally recognized for what it actually was. Not love, not guilt, not even contempt. Pure calculation, wondering if I might still be useful somehow, even now, even after everything. Rebecca Voss received 16 years. Julian Torres received 11. I recovered most of the transferred funds. My mother's estate documents were returned intact. The safe contents, minus $400 cash apparently considered incidental, came back in an evidence bag 5 weeks after the arrest. My grandfather's medals included. I placed them back in the safe, which I had reinstalled with a combination only I knew. Some nights I still hear her asking about dinner across our kitchen table. Casual. Warm. Completely manufactured. I used to believe love made you perceptive. Turns out it just makes you vulnerable. And sometimes that vulnerability is exactly what someone with empty intentions is counting on.